Hi, I'm Nikki from the Sewing Shed, and today we're going to be doing your free taster session of a journal quilt. This is the pre-run to the journal quilt course that we're going to be running soon. So this is what we're going to be showing you how to do. It's a little nighttime seascape, and as we already discussed in our introduction in a previous video, my journal quilts are going to fit into my suitcase. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so I'm going to decide the size of my journal quilt. So I've measured my suitcase and it's 10 by 16 inches. So I've cut myself, for the first journal quilt, I've cut myself a piece exactly 10 by 16, but I'm probably going to trim it down later so that it actually fits inside the suitcase, because the size inside will be slightly smaller. But I'm going to start off with the size of the suitcase. So to make this journal quilt, we're going to just use some scraps and some threads, and I've gathered some of them here. So we've got some, it's sort of based on a monochromatic theme. I'm not going to go too much into the colour theory now because I want to start at the beginning with the course. But we're going to make this night scene, and at night time there is no light from the sun, so therefore there's very little colour. So we're that's why we're going with sort of a grey, dark theme. I do have a little bit of colour here because it's nice to add in, but I've just raided my scrap bin and I've got some greys, a little bit of really dark. I have added a little strip in there just of a bit of colour, just to, you know, add a bit of oomph. And a bit of sparkly black fabric that's going to be our sky. So we're just going to make a nighttime seascape, which is one of my favourites. And it's quite easy to do, so I said we'd start off with the taster session with something fairly easy. We're going to use 505. This is going to be your new best friend during this course. And I'm just going to, I've got my foundation cut, and I also have a little piece of wadding or batting, whatever you want to call it. Just going to do a little spray, you don't need much. Now the foundation can be anything. This was just a little leftover piece I had in my scrap bin, and it just was nearly the right size. So it's going to be completely covered, it doesn't matter what it is. And then I'm just going to put a little bit more 505 spray. This keeps everything really flat and reduces the use of pins. So I have pre-cut my black shiny piece. I've measured it out prior to doing this. Okay, so I'm just going to place this on top now. And then I'm just going to arrange the strips. So it's going to be my sky, and we're going to do the water with a little bit of reflection off the moon. So I'm going to use my strips, and we're just going to layer them up. And the use of the 505 spray, you can actually reposition these if you don't like. So we're just going to do this and audition it, and then we can change it around if you want afterwards. Now I've cut these with the rotary cutter, and when you're doing any type of seascape or landscape, the number one rule is to remember this horizon line that separates we've got water here and sky here. The horizon line is always dead straight. I've cut these pieces straight because it's not going to really matter when we've stitched them all down. I'm just going to add a little bit of colour there. Not too much though, because I want to keep it as monochromatic as possible. No, I'm quite happy with that. Just remove some of the loose threads and it's all stuck down with the spray. Okay, so now we can go on to the stitching. Okay, so the machine I'm using is the Brother Innovis VQ2. It's my absolute favourite machine at the moment for lots of different reasons. But I put it onto zigzag stitch, and it's just quite a loose stitch. It's not a satin stitch or anything, it's just quite a wide stitch, just for the purpose of holding these strips down so that we can work with them. And it will add a bit of texture to the piece as well. So I'm just going to start by running the zigzag stitch over the edge of each of the strips to hold it down. Now you don't need any particular skill set for the journal course, but the use of the sewing machine is important. So as long as you can turn on a sewing machine and you know how to use it, then you'll be fine. We will be covering techniques like free motion, quilting and things like that, but you don't have to be at any particular level. They're nice small little quilts, and it's about experimenting and putting yourself a little bit out of the comfort zone and trying new things. And because it's nice small projects, you'll have more confidence to try new things. All the strips have been stitched down with the zigzag stitch, and we're going to start adding a little bit of detail now to your nighttime seascape. Now my lines are very straight. You might decide that after the horizon line these are a bit more wavy. There's no right or wrong. You can go as artistic or as regimented as you want. It's entirely up to you. It's your work, and I encourage you to do your own version of this and experiment and have fun. We're going to go now and use a sparkly thread and do a little bit of stitching on the back, and then afterwards I'll be placing on my moon, and we'll be adding in some moonlight onto our ripples of water. So we'll do a bit of stitching on the back first. I've changed the thread. I've got a little reel here with a little bit of sparkle in with the thread. You might need to change to a metallic needle for that if the thread breaks. And I've set this to a straight stitch. So just for now, I'm just going to do some wavy stitching on the back to add a bit of detail to the back. Don't worry about the walking foot for now, because it's just a very small bit, and it's just to add a bit of texture into the back, into our night sky. So I'm just moving the fabric. I'm just going to go off the edge. If you want to do free motion, you can. We'll be doing a little bit of free motion later on, but I don't want to overcomplicate it. I want everybody to be comfortable with, you know, being able to do it. And you can do as much or as little as you want on this. I'm just doing some lines quite wide apart, just to really show you what to do. But you can go really detailed if you want, and especially if you go free motion, you can do little swirls. But we'll come back to that in a little while. Okay, so I've just found something round, and I've used it as a template to cut out my moon. My moon is a little bit of silk that I had left over from another project. It doesn't have to be silk, but something that you feel that would work well on your nighttime seascape as your moon. And again, a little tiny bit of basting spray. Then I'm just going to centre that in the middle. Okay. I'm happy for that. That's in a good position now, because we're going to put some reflection at the end of the water of the moon onto the water. Okay. Okay, so I've changed my thread again, and we've gone back to a zigzag. I've just put a thread in that complements the moon for now. I'm just going to very carefully sew around the outer edge with a zigzag at the edge of the moon to applique it onto the background. If you're worried about doing this, you can practice. You can practice on a sample piece first. It's quite hard to sew a circle around. So I've put on the free motion foot because I want to do a little bit of free motion on the moon, and then I'm going to do some free motion on the rest of the piece. Like I said before, don't worry if you haven't done free motion before. You can just use your normal foot and do some straight stitching across it. Just go slowly and you can turn your piece as you go. Or if this is your first time, just go for it and try it. So we're going to drop the foot. So we're just going to do a bit of free motion on the moon. So I've changed the thread now. I put in a black metallic thread, and I'm just going to do a bit of free motion in the sky to add a bit more detail. It's very subtle, but that doesn't matter. That's sort of the effect I want. So we're going to do a bit of stitching now, going backwards and forwards to create the motion of the water, and then when we're finished I'll show you the overall effect of the stitching, and at the end then we'll add in some moonlight on the water. Slightly lighter thread for the centre of the reflection. I've centred it off the moon, and I've put it down straight through the middle, and I'm very happy with the effect. So I'm happy with the stitching on that. You can do way more if you want, or you can just continue to experiment, but for the purpose of this taster session we're just going to leave it at that. It's nice and simple, it's very effective, so I'm just going to trim it. Now the inside of my suitcase, to fit it, I'm going to trim it to 9.5 by 15. So using this line across here as to square it up, I'm going to just trim off one edge. And then I'm going to make it square across the bottom using the lines on the board, and then we'll size it. And then we'll be ready to put the binding on. Okay, so we're just finishing off the quilt now. I've made the binding and I've stitched it to the back, and I'm bringing it forward, and I've just used a bit of basting spray to put on the back because I was just quilting it onto the wadding. So for these small quilts, I just like to have a false back on it. So once the binding gets on, the little journal quilt will be finished.